today we're talking about the 1997 film Fireworks by filmmaker Takeshi Kitano, excuse me. And he has a great collection of films here that I have just learned about recently. So yeah, I just watched Hana-Bi, Sonatine, and Violent Cop, both seem awesome. Then he has a trilogy, the Outrage trilogy, that's, I think the last one, Beyond Outrage 2012. Is that the most recent? Maybe it was like 2017, I thought. Outrage Coda. Yeah, 2017. That's the most recent one. And I think that's his most recent film as of right now. So he hasn't made anything after that. We're talking about Hana-Bi. And Hana-Bi, it didn't really go as I expected, but I think that was in a good way. The only way I had been introduced to Takeshi Kitano was through Battle Royale, where he was the teacher, and he was awesome. I thought he was a standout in that movie. Loved that movie. And so, yeah, I decided to look into his filmography, and this one seemed really interesting because, yeah, I love crime films, and, I mean, he was really funny in Battle Royale, so I thought some of that part of his personality might come out in this, so it would be like this, like, outrageous, funny crime movie about him playing a cop, but it was very laid back and reserved, and I liked it a lot. It was very artsy, like literally and not literally, literally and art. You'll see. There's a lot of painting in this movie, and the paintings in this film had a lot to do with just like the general themes and everything, and figuratively. Yes, that is the word I was looking for. Okay. I just couldn't remember it. But yeah, it was very artsy in a surprising way that I really, really liked. And so, spoiler free at first. So, this movie is about a police officer played by Takeshi himself, and he leaves the police force, and his wife is terminally ill. And so he has to decide to spend some time with her, but he also has some unpaid debts and some trouble that he gets into. And then just it's all intermingled with some flashbacks of his life as a cop and intermingled with another storyline of a former partner of his that is also a very, very big part of the movie. Does he always play a police officer? It seems like it. In all of his movies, it really seems like he always plays a police officer. I mean, you have Violent Cop. He's a police officer in Hana-Bi. Sonatine, okay, he's a Yakuza. He's a gangster. Okay. In this one, seems like a dad. But I guess in his Outrage series, I think he Yakuza here. Police, Yakuza. He does a lot of, police, Yakuza, cop on the edge. Yeah, kind of does. Well, I mean, a lot of them are his movies, so he's typecasting himself as that type. And I mean, if it's all going similarly to this movie, I think he does a terrific job. Because again, yeah, this is a crime movie, and I've seen a lot of like Japanese crime movies in the past, but the reason this one was so different was because of how reserved and laid back it was, and how it really highlighted the smaller moments. And the smaller moments were such a big part of the entire message of the movie. Because, yeah, it's showing him as a cop it seemed at the beginning it was glamorizing it a little with everything that was going on. But then throughout the movie, like pretty quickly throughout the movie, you realize that no, it's a lot slower. He's very self-reflective in this movie. There's a lot of moments where he just sits and thinks. And I think for the first half of this movie, I don't know if he spoke a word. He was pretty much silent throughout the first half of this movie. And that's when we are learning a lot about, okay, I'm going full into spoilers now. I think it's best to talk this movie with spoilers, that we're learning that, yeah, his wife is terminally ill. He was formerly a cop. And then his partner got shot and is now wheelchair bound. And he now has some debts that he has to pay off to the Yakuza as well. And so his life, again, it's just a mess. Like it says here, sprawling into a depression, he makes questionable decisions. And so the whole rest of the movie is kind of like his going out party. He's going out with a bang, like a firework. And the most interesting thing about this movie is that it's an exploration of his masculinity, and it does it so well because of the contrast with his partner. Because his partner gets a lot of screen time as well, but they are never together. It shows the instance where his partner gets shot, and then, yeah, he's paralyzed. He's in a wheelchair for the entire rest of the movie, and we watch his narrative play out where he's learning to paint. He's suicidal, but he's learning to paint, and that's his outlet, his creative outlet, and that's great. But then contrasted to him, Takeshi Kitano's character, he still has a lot of that rage. He's lost a lot. Oh, I forgot to mention that his partner had lost his wife and his child. And so that's why he was feeling that way. And then Takeshi here, they had lost a child previously, and now he's losing his wife as well. So they're both kind of going down similar paths, with the ones closest to them are being taken away from them unfairly. And the way he is dealing with everything is by killing a bunch of people and being very violent. But the way it shows it is so interesting, because it's not like there is a lot of violence in this movie. He takes some chopsticks, stabs a guy, he shoots a few guys, hits people in the face with some rocks, But he is so stoic throughout the entire movie. And then it seems like the cutting is also very cool, because it'll cut from him doing a violent act and then just cut straight to like him doing something a normal person would do, like playing a board game with his wife. And they're just sitting there in silence. And then there's just like these silent moments of like happiness between them, where there was a moment where they each had a dessert on a plate, and then she just like silently steals his dessert, and there's a strawberry on it, and she like gives back the strawberry, and they both laugh. And it was such a nice, tender moment. And yeah, it just intercuts between that and like his violent actions of him just like realizing everything in his world is being taken away from him. He's really just going downhill. His days as a cop are in the past. He has these debts to pay off that he knows he can't pay off. And yeah, he goes out with a bang. And yeah, so I thought, again, this movie, it's violent, it's thoughtful, and there's still moments of comedy in it as well. So again, when I was watching Battle Royale, I thought some of the character traits that he had in that movie, he was very funny, he was very silly, because the premise of Battle Royale was just way more outrageous. Thought that might have translated here, but there is some more soft-spoken comedy in this as well. I mean, the comedy with the guy in the garage, in the car dumpster area, when he hits a guy on the road, and it's like, oh, you should have gotten your car out of the way, blah, blah, blah. And then Takeshi's character comes and he's like, oh, I need to buy this car. I need to rob a bank with it. And then they both just laugh about it. There's a lot of like subtly funny moments as well in this movie. And then, yeah, the whole thing of him robbing a bank was also just like kind of funny as well. Because, ex-cop, he spray paints his whole car. He spray paints a taxi to make it look like an actual cop car, gets in his old cop uniform and just goes up to a bank, has a gun concealed. He's like, hey, give me a bunch of money. Gets a bunch of money, gives it to the Yakuza to pay off his debts, but then the Yakuza are like, oh, he has a bunch of money. How did he pay off this? Oh, let's hound him for more. And then they try to hound him for more, and these like two Yakuza guys keep coming at him, and he just keeps on. He hurts them once, and then they come back, and he's like, told you guys you shouldn't have come back. And he just absolutely murders them in the snow. That snow scene was crazy. That snow was so high. That was crazy. When his wife went on a vacation up to the north of Japan. Oh, and then they hit that gong, and that was hilarious. Yeah, they're just like weird, funny moments. And yeah, I'm talking a lot about Takeshi's character arc in this, but it's almost another entire movie where we have here. I need to find his name. Yeah, Horibe. That's the other cop who is paralyzed. And his whole character is he's going around. He's looking at a lot of the world around him, kind of taking it in. He never talked to Takeshi's character in the like second half of the movie, or after they were just cops. There was never a moment where they talked to each other. Takeshi's character delivered him some painting supplies, but never actually was there for that delivery. He just like had them sent by somebody else. So it's like he's trying to subtly like help him out a bit, but I think that the grief that he's feeling is just like holding him back, because Takeshi's character is he's so layered in the way where he's trying to be outwardly so cool, and he is very cool. They present him so cool in this movie, this stoic, badass ex-cop. But yeah, it is very sad, the movie. He has a lot of sad moments. He's a depressed guy. He's losing his wife, and he's just taking his anger out on killing people. And in the end, he does kill himself and his wife on a beach. It's like he was like, life is not worth living anymore. And so he just tries to live it up, get out his emotions by killing a bunch of people, by shooting them. That could be like the fireworks, if you want to relate it to the title. I also think the title could also be the fireworks of that one moment where they flash back to this one moment where one of his partners was killed in this just like a mall where they were trying to get this guy, and they're all piled on top of each other, and the bad guy has a gun and he shoots it upwards and like goes through both of his friends. One of them was just injured. And that was a very definitive moment. It was like he had blood on his face, and then he just unloads an entire clip into him. Yeah, so those could have been the fireworks as well. I don't know if fireworks are gunshots, if fireworks are representing the flowers that Haribe's painting, because that was a big thing. And I mean, in this poster, it's directly referencing the flower being a firework as well. The existing cops were kind of like the mediator, like telling the audience what's up. And I thought that was a decent way of doing it, because they're like, oh, have they ever talked? And they're like, no, I've heard that they've never talked, actually. You know, they just, he delivered him some paint supplies, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And then they eventually go on to hunt down Takeshi's character because, you know, he's killing a bunch of people and he robbed a bank. But yeah, they were interesting because there was also one of the cops who died, and then he left behind a widow. And Takeshi, he left her some money and went to talk to her when she was doing her part-time job, and he left her some money as well. That's like his subtle way of like helping people out, but he really doesn't want to express himself and open up to another person. He's very closed off, very, again, commentary on masculinity, where he's very closed off. The way that he is expressing his appreciation for other people is through these sideways gestures where he's not actually physically there trying to get to know them. He's just like, oh, I just need to subtly, you know, help them out somehow because it's too much pain for him to actually try and go and have those conversations. And so, yeah, I think that really worked so well. And yeah, he was a sad character at the same time as being a badass. And it was really cool to see. He just pulled it off so well. And lastly, yeah, I did want to talk about the paintings for Haribe because, again, I keep on going back to Haribe, and then there's a thread that goes to Takeshi's character, and I keep on going there because, yeah, the majority of the movie is Takeshi, but we have so many moments where we cut back to Haribe and his journey with painting, where that is his outlet. Instead of killing a bunch of people, instead of thinking that life isn't worth living with him not being a cop anymore, him being paralyzed, his family being dead, he has found this outlet of painting. And instead of gunshots being his fireworks, being his thing that brings beauty or self-fulfillment, I think that's a good word. So the gunshots of Takeshi's character bring him fulfillment, but the paintbrush of Haribe brings him fulfillment. And those are his fireworks. Because again, yeah, it's very colorful. His paintings, they're very abstract. They're very beautiful. A lot of them are of flowers. He's looking at things in the world. We see him go out into the world. He's looking at flowers. I forget if it was in the movie or in the interview I saw with Takeshi, where it was like, after a certain accident, because I know Takeshi got into a motorcycle accident in real life. He said that he looked at flowers and then he just looked at them so differently. It's like everyone is unique. And he never had noticed that before prior to having his accident. And so that's what brought him the beauty and inspiration, because all the paintings in the movie are actually Takeshi who did those paintings. So it's almost like him himself. He's splitting his personality into two, into his character and into Haribe's character. And those are like the two avenues that could have happened. And the two different ways of the same character coping with his life going downhill. And I think, yeah, they're definitely mirror images of each other in the movie. And I think that's, again, why it works really, really well. I think that if we were just following Takeshi the whole time, it would have been a fine movie. But I think, yeah, mirroring it with Haribe's character and what he was going through, and like, yeah, just the beauty of looking at all the paintings. The paintings were so interesting. And even in a lot of the mise en scène of the movie, there were just these paintings like in the hospital and everything. And yeah, it works so well. Haribe's character was so interesting. And the moment where he had written suicide on one of the paintings and we think that he's going to kill himself, there's a red splatter of what you think is blood, but it's actually paint. And so instead of killing himself, he's able to use paint. But then Takeshi's character, who is going down, again, the similar path, the similar arc, he does actually use his blood as paint, and he does kill himself and destroy everything in his life. But yeah, it was a great, interesting movie with a lot of depth to it that I wasn't expecting. And I'm excited to see what else Takeshi has to offer in his other movies. I think I'll watch Sonatine soon. But yeah, I would highly recommend Hana-Bi. And yeah, it won the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival, so, you know, there's that. And it was just such an interesting spin on this violent cop genre. pun intended, because that's his other movie here. But yeah, it was great. I really liked it. Glad I watched it.